Okay, imagine this. It's 2025. You step into the year feeling, well, completely calm, confident, adaptable, while maybe others around you are really struggling, just trying to keep up with all the change.
That's a powerful image.
It is, right. And that's the core idea from the research we're diving into today. It's saying that this kind of future-proof confidence, it isn't just luck, it's actually a skill, something you can deliberately build.
Exactly. A learnable skill.
So our mission here in this deep dive is to really explore the framework for developing that resilient, adaptable mental approach. We're looking for those actionable strategies, the things you can actually do to cultivate what the material calls unwavering mental fortitude for the next decade.
It's like a blueprint for an internal system upgrade.
Yes, a system upgrade. Okay, let's unpack this.
And that idea, the system upgrade, that's precisely why this is so critical right now. Look, knowledge is really only valuable when you understand it, and maybe more importantly, when you apply it consistently.
Right. Theory isn't enough.
Not anymore. What we're discussing today, it's not just some intellectual exercise. It's really an essential shift you need to make. The sheer speed of modern life demands that we connect this kind of thinking, this framework, directly to, well, practical daily applications.
You have to start now for tomorrow.
You really do. Preparing your mind today for the volatility that's definitely coming tomorrow.
Okay, so let's start with the landscape. The environment we're all navigating, the material gives us a reality check straight away, this accelerating pace of change. It's undeniable.
You feel it everywhere.
And it's driven by forces that are already here, right? We're talking massive AI integrations, especially in white-collar jobs. We're talking significant, often pretty costly climate shifts.
Yeah, and that continuous economic volatility. Things feel unstable. 1 minute a sector is booming, the next.
It's a bust almost overnight. These aren't abstract things anymore, are they? They're present realities. And they demand a big mindset shift.
Exactly. And the core cognitive challenge, the thing these forces really exploit in us, is what the research calls the illusion of stability.
Illusion of stability. Tell me more about that.
Well, think about how your brain works, right? It's fundamentally a pattern-matching machine. It loves predictability. It looks for rhythms.
Like the sun rises, traffic is bad at 8 a.m., that kind of thing.
Precisely. My industry works this way. And that wiring was incredibly helpful when the world moved, more slowly. But now, when the future is defined by constant, high-impact changes, that same natural wiring actually starts working against you.
So it sounds like we're sort of hardwired for complacency, maybe. But the world demands agility.
That's a great way to put it. Precisely. And this really highlights the critical difference between just sort of surviving and actually thriving. Passive observation, just watching the world go by, it's simply not enough anymore.
Okay.
If you just sit back, read the headlines about tech shifts or market crashes, and just react emotionally, you're always going to feel overwhelmed, always behind.
So reacting isn't the answer.
No. The necessary change is shifting from being a reactor to being, well, a proactive designer of your own mental system. Active mental preparation, that means intentionally building a cognitive infrastructure, a way of thinking designed for navigating uncertainty. That's what's essential now. Absolutely essential.
So the goal isn't just being aware that changes are happening, it's having a mechanism ready before they hit.
Yes, exactly. We need a way to filter all that chaos, all that noise, into something actionable, insight we can use.
Okay.
And that takes us into the next stage, the proactive part of this framework.
Right. So if reacting is basically a losing strategy, then anticipation has to be the key, right?
Seems logical.
And our sources introduce this idea of the proactive mind. But crucially, they make a distinction we really need to underline here. This goes beyond specific prediction.
Ah, okay. So not fortune telling.
Definitely not. We're not trying to guess, like, which specific startup is going to have the big IPO next year. The focus is different. It's on understanding the underlying forces, identifying broad systemic trends.
So macro shifts.
Yeah.
The bigger picture.
Exactly. Think of it less like predicting the exact weather tomorrow and more like understanding how the tectonic plates are moving over the next decade. Big underlying movements.
Got it.
And a practical tool they suggest for this is something called scenario planning for personal growth. And this isn't just for big companies doing strategy days.
Right. This is for you, the individual listener.
Yes. It involves mentally rehearsing, like running simulations in your head, for multiple plausible futures. And that includes both the positive ones and the challenging ones.
Okay. But I could see a potential issue here. Doesn't thinking about lots of scenarios, especially negative ones, risk just making you anxious? or lead to analysis paralysis. We're trying to build confidence here, not worry people.
That's a really important point because, yeah, scenario planning done badly is just worrying with extra steps, isn't it? But the material emphasizes why this mental rehearsal is actually powerful. It's because it reduces the element of surprise. When you've already walked through a scenario in your mind, even a tough one, like, say, needing to completely switch careers.
We've processed it a bit already.
Exactly. You've done some of that initial emotional heavy lifting. So when reality actually serves up something similar, the shock factor is much lower. You're more likely to shift into execution mode, into problem solving, instead of just panic mode.
Ah, I see. So the preparedness cuts down the emotional drag of the change itself. That makes sense.
Right. And to fuel that useful scenario planning, you need to develop something else, what the sources suggest we can call a weak signals radar.
A weak signals radar.
Yeah.
Sounds intriguing.
It's a skill you actively train. You learn to look past the daily noise, the constant media churn, and spot the subtle indicators, the little things that hint at emerging shifts that might eventually impact your life, your work.
Okay, can you give an example? What does a weak signal actually look like before it becomes a huge trend?
Sure, let's think back. Maybe 5, 6 years ago. A weak signal might have been noticing just a few large traditional companies starting to experiment with permanent remote work options.
Right. It was niche then, usually for specialized tech teams or maybe some writers.
Exactly, just a small experiment. But if you were tracking that signal, if you were paying attention, you might have understood the underlying force, the growing technological capability for distributed work.
The potential was there.
And you'd realize that when a big disruption finally hit, like the pandemic, that force was already primed, ready to explode into the dominant trend, suddenly changing everything from real estate to management styles to, well, the whole idea of a workplace.
I see. So training your mind to spot those faint tremors early, that's key to anticipating the bigger shifts, the earthquakes.
That's the idea. It gives you that anticipation advantage.
Okay, so we have that groundwork, understanding trends, running scenarios. That's essential anticipation.
Right. But, even if we can anticipate the storm coming, we still need to make sure our own foundations are solid, so we don't just collapse under the pressure when it hits.
The internal strength matters just as much.
Exactly. And this is where we get into the specific mental tools that build that resilience, that fortitude. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yes, I agree, because the material argues something quite provocative here. It says, simply aiming for resilience, which basically means bouncing back to where you were before is actually kind of outdated now.
Outdated. So what's the alternative?
We need to start embracing anti-fragility. This core idea, really popularized by Nassim Taleb, is vital for the future. It means you don't just survive disruption or get back to normal.
Okay.
You actually turn the stressor itself, the disruption, into an opportunity for growth. The external pressure, the challenge, it actually makes your psychological system better, stronger, more capable than it was before the hit.
Okay, so if resilience is like a tree bending in the wind and snapping back, then anti-fragility is like that tree growing thicker roots, maybe a wider trunk, because of weathering the storm. It gets stronger from the stress.
That's a perfect analogy, exactly. Think about lifting weights. The stressor, the weight damages the muscle tissue slightly.
Right.
And the body adapts by overcompensating, rebuilding the muscle stronger. That's physical anti-fragility. We need to apply that same principle mentally.
And how do we do that? It sounds good in theory.
Well, often it requires a pretty radical mental reframe. Most people, when faced with uncertainty, get paralyzed by asking that really anxiety-inducing question, what if it goes wrong?
Yeah, that question just spirals downwards.
It guarantees inaction, because the answer is always some terrifying hypothetical disaster playing out in your head. The anti-fragile reframe shifts that internal dialogue. It moves it to an adaptive question.
Which is,
how can I adapt and thrive if this happens? Or, what knowledge, connections, or insight can I actually gain from this disruption that will set me up better for the next challenge?
I see. It changes the feeling from dread to almost strategic curiosity.
Exactly. Strategic curiosity and forward momentum. It shifts the whole psychological load.
And to make those kinds of adaptive thought patterns more automatic, the framework highlights using mental models. These are like foundational ways of thinking, shortcuts for navigating complexity when things feel overwhelming.
Yeah, thinking tools.
Can you walk us through the two key ones mentioned, first principles thinking?
Absolutely. So, first principles thinking. This is about breaking a complex problem right down to its absolute, basic, fundamental truths, its core components.
Like peeling back the layers.
Precisely. Instead of just accepting the conventional wisdom about how something is done or relying on analogies, you ask, what are the fundamental physics here? The mathematics,
Yeah.
the raw materials involved.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, say you want to create a new product. Using first principles, you wouldn't start by looking at what competitors charge. You'd start by asking, what are the inherent non-negotiable costs of the raw components? What does it fundamentally take to make this thing? That allows you to potentially innovate past everyone else's assumptions.
Right, deconstructing the problem to its base elements. Okay, what about the other model mentioned, inversion?
Inversion is basically thinking backward. It's a really powerful technique. Instead of asking how to achieve success, you ask, what would guarantee failure?
How does that help?
Well, if your goal is, say, professional success, you invert it. You ask, what actions would absolutely guarantee my career stalls or fails? Maybe the answer is, never learn new skills, always blame others for mistakes, ignore all feedback.
Okay.
By intensely focusing on avoiding those guaranteed failure points, you naturally steer yourself towards the actions that lead to success. It clarifies what pitfalls to dodge. These models, first principles and inversion, they give you instant leverage in complicated, messy situations.
Thinking tools to build that fortitude. Got it.
So we've got anticipation, we've got fortitude.
Now we need the tools to keep moving, right?
Yeah.
To maintain momentum when the world just refuses to sit still. This brings us to the adaptability arsenal.
Oh, yeah.
And the first, maybe surprising weapon in this arsenal is the skill of unlearning. We talk so much about learning new things, but the research really highlights the need for rapid unlearning and relearning.
That sounds uncomfortable.
It often is. It's described as this critical skill of consciously shedding outdated beliefs, old assumptions, even technical expertise that used to be valuable but isn't anymore, and then crucially, acquiring the new knowledge on demand when you need it.
So the biggest barrier isn't always ignorance.
No, often it's the illusion of knowledge. It's refusing to let go of the thing you already mastered because, well, it feels comfortable, it's familiar territory.
And clinging to that outdated knowledge becomes a huge liability, a single point of failure.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think about maybe an accountant who spent decades mastering complex ledger software and very specific proprietary company systems. If they refuse to unlearn those workflows, refuse to embrace AI-driven automation tools that are coming in.
Their core value diminishes rapidly.
Exactly. Their entire value proposition could just vanish. Unlearning is painful, no doubt, because it often means sacrificing expertise you worked hard to gain. But it's absolutely necessary to make the mental space for the new skills that 2035 will demand.
Okay, so unlearning clears the decks. What's next? How do we make that process less emotionally damaging?
Well, that links directly to the second element, adopting the iterative mindset.
Iterative mindset, like in software development. Test and learn.
Very similar concept, yes, but applied to life and challenges. This view fundamentally removes the paralyzing emotional weight we often attach to making mistakes.
How so?
When you truly adopt an iterative mindset, you view challenges not as pass-fail tests, but as experiments. And if challenges are experiments, then failures. They aren't personal indictments, they're purely data points.
Just information.
Exactly. Inputs for improvement. They tell you what doesn't work, which, paradoxically, accelerates your path to finding what does work. It's a fundamental psychological shift.
Away from seeing mistakes as endpoints.
Yes. Most people treat a mistake like a final verdict. The iterative mindset says, okay, that experiment failed. Interesting. What did I learn? What data did I get? How does this inform the next iteration? It completely changes your relationship with risk.
And speeds up that whole unlearning and relearning loop we just talked about.
Precisely. Makes it much faster and less painful.
Okay, that makes sense. And the final strategy, connecting all this adaptability.
Is building a diversified mental portfolio.
Mental portfolio, like a stock portfolio.
Exactly the same principle.
Mm.
Just as you wouldn't, or shouldn't, put all your financial investment into a single stock.
Right, too risky.
You shouldn't rely solely on a single skill set.
Yeah.
Or one industry connection. Or even just one way of looking at the world. The goal here is to deliberately develop multiple competencies, multiple perspectives.
Why is that so important?
To specifically avoid those single points of failure in your career or even your personal life. If you're, say, a brilliant writer, maybe you learn some digital marketing basics or a bit of web coding. If you're an engineer, perhaps develop your public speaking skills or learn fundamental financial management.
So it's not just about having a plan B.
It's more than just a backup plan, yes. It's about increasing your potential connection points in a volatile economy and world. If one area you rely on gets severely disrupted, Maybe AI takes over certain tasks, or an industry shrinks. You have other skills, other perspectives you can pivot to.
It maximizes your overall adaptability.
Yeah.
Keeps you.
Anti-fragile. It all links back together. Diversification makes you more robust and better able to seize opportunities that arise from change. Hashtag outro.
Okay, so pulling this all together.
Yeah. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this journey towards future-proof confidence, it really rests on three powerful pillars, doesn't it?
It seems so. What are they again?
First, anticipation. That's about sensing the future, not predicting it, but using trends and scenarios. Second, fortitude. Building that inner strength through embracing anti-fragility and using those practical mental models.
Right.
And third, adaptability. That constant iterative process of unlearning, relearning, and diversifying your mental portfolio. That whole package, that's the foundation of the future-proof mindset we've been discussing.
That's a great summary. And before we wrap up, let's leave you, the listener, with two very specific action points drawn from this framework. Practical takeaways.
Good idea.
First, try adopting some kind of daily mindset practice. It could be super simple, like 5 minutes of journaling, or consciously practicing one of those mental models like inversion on a small problem, just something to actively strengthen that mental resilience muscle.
Small steps, big impact over time.
Exactly. And second, maybe take some time this week to actually create a personal future-proofing mission statement. Just write down for yourself how you intend to approach uncertainty and aim to thrive over the next, say, 10 years.
Making it concrete, intentional.
Yeah, make it real for you.
Okay, and this really raises an important question for you to consider, doesn't it? Since mindset development is clearly described here not as a destination you arrive at, but as an ongoing continuous journey.
Right, it never stops.
How does integrating just a single intentional daily practice, like the ones you mentioned, actually transform that constant challenge of uncertainty? How does it turn it from something scary into maybe a predictable source of your own personal growth?
Interesting way to frame it.
And perhaps more immediately, what will be your first mental model? Maybe inversion, maybe first principles, thinking that you'll try to consciously practice tomorrow. Just give it a shot.